Welcome to Lizzie's Workshop and this week's Mixed Media Monday. Today I am using more of the Prima chalkboard paint in the jewel blue color, and I've been trying to use this up, so I've been using it quite a lot, but I'm using it with a sponge and a stencil. The stencil is a Crafter's Workshop stencil, TCW, and I'm just going through and trying to get rid of some of the white space, because in the white space of this page I can see a lot of the writing that had taken place, so I kind of want to give the impression that maybe I had done this on the jelly plate, so I'm adding quite a bit of it. And the nice thing about these chalkboard paints is that they're so opaque that they cover up most of whatever is there paint-wise. The next thing that I'm doing is I am grabbing a roll of washi tape, and this one just says Hello Sunshine. I probably bought it at Michael's because that's where I buy a lot of my washi tape. And then I am taking a color that I know will just shine and bounce right off of there, and that's going to be the Dylusion spray, and I think this color is called Pure Sunshine. I've been using it quite a lot lately because it goes really well with the Dylusion spray called Dirty Martini. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm grabbing this stamp, and it is a Stampin' Up! Stamp. The set is called Remarkable You, and I just got this one recently, so I don't know if it's from last year's catalog or what, but I did just buy it just after Christmas. So what I'm doing is I am stamping on here a whole bunch of times, and it comes in sets of 2. I do like to do things in odd numbers, so I have to fiddle a little bit, and you really can't see this from this point of view, but I can see it when I look down at it with the light shining on it, and I will go around and make it a little bit darker beneath or around these stamped flowers so that I can see them better. I will go around them with my Stabilo All in Black because I want to be able to have a little bit of use them as a little bit of a shadow or a dictation of where I'm going to place the flowers when I put the flowers on after creating them on white paper. So I go through and I add all the stamps that I wanted to add on there, and I make sure that I have an odd number because I love doing things in odd numbers. It just seems to appeal more to the eye. And the next thing that I do is I grab my Stabilo All pencil and I go up and I go around every single flower. And I'm not putting necessarily a shadow on, I'm just adding depth to them. So if I was just doing a shadow, I would only do the left-hand side of everything. But what I'm doing is I'm trying to add depth to when I put the cutouts over top of these. So I'm just creating, maybe you could call it a shadow, but it's more just a little bit of definition instead of having to draw along the outside of the stamped images once I get them onto white paper. So I go around every single one. I don't worry about the detail on the inside of the flower. I'm just going around the outside of each of the flowers. I'm not really concerned of how they stack up upon each other. I'm just defining each flower all on its own. And then after that, I will take my water barrel brush and activate that pencil. And it creates this nice black shadow of a line all over where I had stamped every single one of those flower images. And it gives me a pretty good idea of how I need to stack them once I put the cutouts over top, so that I know which one I have to lay down first and which one goes on top of the other and so forth. So I go through the whole thing, and if you notice I'm right-handed, so I always start on the left-hand side of the page and move towards the right so that I don't run my hand through any of the ink or any of the wet stuff. So then I punched out the exact number of flowers that I need, or sorry, stamped them out onto a piece of white cardstock. This is just a simple 60-pound white cardstock that I have in my stash. And I did this upstairs so I could supervise my children at the same time. And I took that Pure Sunshine ink spray again and sprayed it into my little palette. And then I took my water barrel brush, put basically a drop of water and then a drop of color, and allowed it to kind of spread on its own to give kind of a watercolor effect that was no hard edges, just kind of unpredictable in its movement. And then some of them I went through and I adjusted the color just a little bit in order to make it nice and smooth and soft so that it was like a flower. Once these were done, I had to let them dry for overnight, somewhere that my kids couldn't reach them. That was the tricky part. And then I cut them all out individually. I did use a green on the stems, but I can't think of what the green was. I think it'll show you later on which one I used, because I think I use it on the page later on. But I cut them all out individually. And then I pulled out this dinosaur. I say it's a dinosaur because I have probably had it for several years, and it's very, very rare for me to use the Xyron sticker maker. And so I thought, you know what, I better use it. You know, once it's out of the rolls of adhesive, maybe I can find the adhesive again, because I think it's quite a popular machine, but I'll have to wait and see. But because I have never really used it all that much, I decided that today was the day that I was going to use it, because it's just sitting there. And as I'm going through my stash, I'm deciding that I'm not going to have things just sitting there anymore. I'm going to start using things. So once I get everything onto the roll, I go through and I push everything down and make sure it's all nicely adhered. And then I go through the inside edges of the flowers to make sure there's no adhesive on the actual flowers themselves, on the top part. And I'm just using a glue eraser, and I think this is also a product that I bought from Stampin' Up. But it goes through and it pulls off all the glue that you have. It works on all kinds of adhesives, and it doesn't smudge the stuff underneath it either. Before I cut these images out of the flowers, I did go over them with a black pen. I just wanted them to pop a little bit more, and I had used the wrong ink pad initially. I had re-inked one of my StazOn pads, but I ended up using a dry pad rather than the fresh one that I had just re-inked, so they were a little bit lighter than I wanted them to be. So I did go around them with a pen to make them nice crisp images before I cut them out. This kind of thing is always easier to do before you cut it out, so that you do get those nice clean crisp lines. And even with coloring them, it was better to do it as a whole on the big piece of paper, because then it allows for the fluid to flow and it prevents each individual flower from buckling. The page might, but the individual flowers won't buckle. So what I'm doing here is I'm going around the outside edges with the adhesive eraser and making sure that everything is a nice crisp clean sticker. And once that's done, I have the time of my life putting them onto the page. Now that I have this in my sights again, I might use it more often, just because it's, you know, it's there and it's easy to use and so forth. So now I'm going to start with the flowers that are farthest to the back of the image, or farthest to the back of what I stamped, and I'm going to work forward so that I create like a bouquet kind of impression. And for the most part, those stems will not be seen. Like they're seen, but you never know where they're going. I probably should have continued them on, used a ruler or a straight edge to continue them on down the page to see where you would see them again, but I just didn't bother with that. So I get all these nice, beautiful stickers on there, and they stuck really nice. Like, I thought I'd have a little bit of peeling and stuff, but it's a scrapbooking product, so the adhesive is really nice. I'll probably use this again to do this part, because I hate it when I have really fine details like the stems of these flowers and then trying to glue it down with whatever medium I have, and then it just doesn't work out. So that is a Neocolor 2 green that I used. I don't know what color it was. It was probably a leaf green or something, but went through that and I thought, you know what, I added another color to this palette and I need to add it elsewhere on the page. So I just kind of found some lighter colored spots on the page, and then I used my water barrel brush to liquefy those so that they provided a little bit of that green throughout the page somewhere else to spread it around a little bit. So that made it so that the whole page was more cohesive and worked better together. So now that I have this, I let it dry, and then I came through with this stamp. This is also a stamp from Stampin' Up. And once again, I'm using my dry StazOn pad, and that's kind of ridiculous. So I put some paper towel underneath to hopefully give it a little bit of padding so that it would actually stamp on the image and have a little bit of give to the page. and that worked a little bit better. I don't want this to be really black, solid, in your face kind of thing. I want it to be an intermittent sort of texture that I'm adding to the page, and I really liked how that added the texture to the flowers themselves, and it worked out really, really well. When I did this page, things were kind of rough. I know I mentioned in a previous video that I had some people in the hospital. Those people, or that person, is still in the hospital and recovering from their injuries. And so when you hear, if you've ever experienced the pleas of somebody who is in pain, you'll understand how hard this past week has been for me, spending time with that person and being there for them and trying to stay positive and rooting for them and everything. So I had to come home and give myself a little bit of art inspiration and a little bit of strength through art, and that's why I chose the word for this page to be strength. Originally I hadn't wanted to do that. I wanted it to just be a page about flowers, but I gave up on that because I needed something to speak to me on this page. So the next thing I'm doing is I'm going around with my Artist Pitt pen, and it's a fat one, so it has a nice big fat brush and a big fat barrel on it, and it's kind of a chunky thing to hold. But then I brought white into the background of this piece because I wanted to bring it all together with the flowers. I used the white around the letters as well so that I could kind of highlight those letters, and then I kind of went around a little bit more and doodled a little bit on the page. One of the problems I had with this was that anything that was water soluble was being picked up on the brush, so I had on the pen tip, so I had to wipe my pen tip off on a spare piece of paper every once in a while. I took the white dots through here and just followed the lines I'd made with the stencil, and that seemed to add a little bit more visual texture in the background as well. I really like how this page turned out, and if you do too, don't forget to like and leave me a comment. Here are the still pictures. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and you'll be back next week for the next Mixed Media Monday. Thanks for watching at Lizzie's Workshop.